Okay, the next item of business is a statement by Gillian Martin on progressing a just transition at Grangemouth. The Cabinet Secretary will take questions at the end of her statement. Therefore, there should be no interventions or interruptions. And I call on Gillian Martin, Cabinet Secretary, up to 10 minutes, please.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I'm delighted to update Parliament today on the tangible progress being made to secure Grangemouth's long-term and sustainable future. The industrial cluster remains essential to both Scotland's just transition to net zero and the future prosperity of our economy. And the measures I'm setting out today are illustrative of our commitment to realising the site's potential. Grangemouth has a proud industrial history. For generations, it's powered Scotland's economy and provided thousands of highly skilled and highly paid jobs. And that's a legacy that I'm committed to continuing. And I want to be clear that this government will not shy away from taking concrete action to address the challenges facing the cluster or to support the people who rely on it. I want to ensure that Grangemouth helps to lead the way in our journey to net zero through new green energy opportunities and for us to bring the valued and skilled workforce with us on that journey. We remain fully committed to using the limited regulatory and fiscal levers at our disposal to ensure that those who live and work at Grangemouth are not left behind in our transition to net zero and in time benefit greatly from the opportunities coming to the industrial cluster. Presiding Officer, since the launch of Project Willow, interest in Grangemouth has been wide-ranging, and I can confirm that Scottish Enterprise has received over 140 inquiries from businesses who are interested in establishing new projects within the industrial cluster. These include projects that align with the recommended technology pathways, as well as complementary projects that, if deployed, would deliver high-value jobs and industrial opportunities at Grangemouth. The level of interest from both domestic and international operators is testament to the dedication of the highly skilled workforce who have undoubtedly secured the reputation of the cluster. It also illustrates the tireless efforts of Scottish Enterprise to actively seek out new opportunities. It shows that Grangemouth is a good place to do business, and by continuing to work with businesses to assess their potential and appropriateness, then putting in place the right level of public sector support, we can unlock its potential by making the proposed projects market investable. That's why the First Minister announced that £25 million would be available during this and future financial years to support new projects and initiatives that secure Grangemouth's long-term and sustainable future. Presiding Officer, I am pleased to announce today the first significant funding awards at 2 projects at Grangemouth, a hugely important milestone. This morning, I attended a groundbreaking ceremony for a project being progressed by Mialgi, a homegrown, pioneering Scottish business. And I welcome that the UK Government has listened to the direct calls from me and others across this chamber and has joined the Scottish Government and Scottish Enterprise to support the allocation of up to £3 million between now and 2027 to support the construction of the company's new commercial-scale bioreactor at Grangemouth. This project will be capable of producing commercial-scale volumes of omega-3, a vital ingredient for global food and health industries. This facility will upcycle whisky byproducts to produce omega-3, a clear example of the circular economy in action, having tangible benefits for businesses and customers across the economy. £1.5 million of this support represents the first funding from the Scottish Government's Grangemouth Just Transition Fund. If this project expands as planned, the company believes that the project will create up to 130 new direct jobs at Grangemouth by the end of 2029, as the company scales its technology and delivers subsequent bioreactor modules. While Mialgi's technology is not directly aligned to the pathways identified in Project Willow, its potential to create jobs and stimulate new industries at pace is exactly what our Just Transition Plan is about. It represents a major step forward in diversifying the cluster and thus securing the future of the industrial base at Grangemouth. But, Presiding Officer, Mialgi is just the beginning. I'm proud to announce that, subject to final negotiations and confirmation of public funding conditions, the Scottish Government and Scottish Enterprise will provide funding support to Celtic Renewables, a company at the cutting edge of biorefining technology at Grangemouth. the Scottish Government is allocating £6.23 million from our Grangemouth Just Transition Fund to support the next stage of the company's ABE biorefinery project. Assuming the company reaches commercialisation as planned, the project is expected to create up to 149 direct jobs at Grangemouth by the end of 2030. Like Mialgi, these numbers are only set to increase as the business continues to scale up its technology and expands the market for its products. Presiding Officer, critical to securing a long-term and sustainable future for the Grangemouth industrial cluster is ensuring that the foundational components are optimised to attract investment. Therefore, I am pleased to confirm to Parliament that we are also providing up to £595,000 to Scottish Enterprise to ensure that the key enabling works to prepare the site for future investment are progressed at pace. These activities will be centred around addressing infrastructure, utilities, land and connectivity challenges across Grangemouth. These are challenges which have been put to me by businesses, Fife Council and others at the Grangemouth Future Industry Board. Presiding Officer, I trust that this is a clear sign that we are listening to the needs of businesses and delivering on our commitment in collaboration with them to take targeted action that secures the long-term and sustainable future of the industrial cluster. And most importantly, Presiding Officer, we continue to prioritise the workforce and the local community who are central to this work. On the 29th of October, and in partnership with Unite the Union, the First Minister announced that new conditionality would be applied to all funds awarded as part of the Grangemouth Just Transition Fund. This will take the form of a guaranteed interview scheme for workers who have been made redundant at Grangemouth for the new roles which will be created as a result of the funding that I am announcing today. I am grateful for the support that Unite the Union has provided in bringing this proposal to fruition. Their expertise and their insight has helped us drive forward our activity and ensure that the workers are at the forefront of our efforts. This is a just transition in action, helping workers secure new opportunities, ensuring that their vital experience, skills and knowledge are not lost to Grangemouth or to Scotland. It is this SNP government putting people at the heart of change. Furthermore, I would like to confirm to Parliament that the Scottish Government intends to continue funding a community participation manager to support Grangemouth's just transition for the next 2 years. This role, funded as part of the Greener Grangemouth programme, is a key delivery partner for the Grangemouth Just Transition Plan, and the role's existence is one of the actions recommended in the plan. Critically, the role remains a key conduit to ensuring that the voices of the community are at the heart of everything we do in pursuit of the cluster's transition. My commitment of providing an additional £150,000 over the next 2 years will support CVS Falkirk to continue this critical work. Presiding Officer, Grangemouth is changing, and as a result of the actions of this government, the hope of a bright future is being built. From biorefining to innovative start-ups to global players, the site is a beacon of Scotland's green industrial future. This is a story of partnership between governments, industry, trade unions, the workforce and communities. It's a story of resilience and ambition. It's a story that shows Scotland can lead the world in delivering a just transition that creates jobs, attracts investment, tackles climate change head-on. However, today's announcement are by no means the limit of our ambition. More must be done and will be done, and I give my commitment to members, not least my colleagues Michelle Thompson, Michael Matheson and the Falkirk Council leader, Councillor Cecil Meiklejohn, who have been unwavering in their commitment to stand up for their constituents, local businesses and, crucially, the workforce and the local community, that the Scottish Government will not rest until we explored every opportunity and realised our ambition of a long-term and sustainable future for Grangemouth. Thank you.
Thank you. The Cabinet Secretary will now take questions on the issues raised in her statement. I intend to allow around about 20 minutes, after which we will need to move on to the next item of business and invite members wishing to ask a question who haven't already done so to press their request to speak buttons. I call first Megan Gallagher.
Presiding Officer, and may I also thank the Cabinet Secretary for advance sight of her statement. This is a step in the right direction for my constituents in Falkirk, Grangemouth and the wider community. Everyone, I hope, in this chamber will welcome jobs being created at the Grangemouth site, but considering many of those jobs will not be operational for another 5 years, it does fall short of what the workers at Grangemouth refinery deserve. The SNP's anti-oil and gas rhetoric, of course, doesn't just affect the thousands of oil and gas workers in the North East. It affects our industrial heartlands at sites such as Grangemouth and Mossmorran. So while I welcome the jobs created today in today's statement, it is ultimately a drop in the ocean compared to what we need. The Scottish and UK governments promised retaining opportunities for those made redundant at Grangemouth, so can the Cabinet Secretary confirm that those retaining opportunities will give them the skills that they need for the new roles that have been created? Secondly, whilst this new funding is welcome, the Project Willow report found that billions of pounds of private investment would still be needed to secure the long-term future of Grangemouth. So can the Cabinet Secretary also tell Parliament how much investment the Scottish Government have managed to secure so far, and what plans do they have to attract more investment in the future?
Cabinet Secretary.
So quite a lot of questions in there. I'll try and deal with them all. So in terms of the skills intervention, we are funding a skills intervention which is delivered by Forth Valley College to retrain and upskill workers directly impacted by the refinery closure that was announced by Petroineos. So this brings projected skills support investment from the Scottish and UK Government up to £2 million. The skills intervention has been extended to include shared services workers at INEOS OMP as well, who are also unfortunately facing redundancy as a direct result of the cessation of refining at Grangemouth. And I'm pleased to report that the engagement in this progress has actually been very high, with workers using the reskilling to secure employment to in-demand industries, including the renewables sector. Over 300 workers have already accessed this support so far. 185, we had an account from the principal of the college this morning at the Grangemouth Future Industry Board. 185 individuals have completed retraining, and 49 at the moment are actively undergoing retraining as well. But he was also able to say, as a result of the monitoring that they have in place at Fife College about the final destinations of those who come through their training programmes, of the known applicants that came back with their final destination, he was able to say there was over 80 of them had actually secured employment. But that doesn't account for the employment that those who haven't undergone the training at Petroineos that have gone straight into jobs as a result of the redundancy that they've faced at Petroineos as well. It's not really fair to say, though, that the jobs from the projects that we've announced today won't materialise for 5 years. Given Mialgi will starting recruiting now, and they actually were telling me that the first modules and the plant will be open. Sorry, Presiding Officer, I'm getting noises off. The plant will be open in April of next year, which is when they will actually start the work on the production of the omega-3. And also, as I set out as well, these are just the first two of many announcements that we're going to be making as a result of the work that's been done with Project Willow and the task force that's been run and headed up by Scottish Enterprises. There has been over 140 bids come in for Project Willow work, but they've also been whittled down to the ones that are most likely to get to financial close. Thank you.
Thank you. Daniel Johnson.
And can I too thank the Minister for advance sight of her statement. The £3 million investment in Mialgi is, of course, welcome. It comes with £1.5 million of investment from the UK Government, which forms part of the £14.5 million announced by the Chancellor in the budget, which will help transform Grangemouth into a low-carbon tech hub. And that's in addition to the £200 million pledged by the National Wealth Fund. So the Minister is right. This is ultimately a story of partnership between Scotland's two governments, but also industry, trade unions, the workforce and the communities. But it's also clear that there was no plan prior to Petroineos' announcement, or indeed the UK Labour government's election. So what lessons have been learned to continue that partnership, to make good on the potential, but also unlock the amounts pledged by both governments? But also, can I ask, this role highlights an interesting role for Scottish Enterprise in facilitating infrastructure, utilities, land and connectivity challenges. Is that perhaps a model for how it can act in the future, particularly with the Celtic Renewables project?
Cabinet Secretary.
Well, I would just say I warmly welcome the spirit of the question and what Daniel Johnson has said, because actually this has been a really collaborative process. From the get-go, myself and the UK Energy Minister, Michael Shanks, have worked very, very hard with Scottish Enterprise and the unions to facilitate the deployment of the Project Willow opportunities that are out there. And I have to pay massive tribute to Scottish Enterprise. Over 140 applications came in, or interventions came in with projects, which is should have taken, I mean, could easily have taken years to go through. They have gone through that process and they have come up with these 2 projects that have now been able to be announced today, but there are actually more coming out as well, which we can't talk about yet, but there really are some exciting going concerns as well. It isn't, however, true to say that it was only last year that work on the just transition in Grangemouth actually started. It was actually going for years before that in the form of the Grangemouth Future Industry Board, which Scottish Government ministers chaired. And I was very pleased in the spirit of collaboration and working with the new UK Government to invite Michael Shanks at the time to be co-chair of the Grangemouth Future Industry Board, showing that it is a joint effort here that is actually delivering results. Both governments are delivering results, but we're working hand in hand with all the interested parties that are in the Grangemouth community, including employers, including the college, including community councils, including the local council, as well as Skills Development Scotland. It has been fruitful. Is it a blueprint for how we might want to continue in the future? Absolutely.
Thank you. A large number of colleagues that want to ask a question. I'd be grateful for brevity in the questions and the responses. I call Michelle Thompson to be followed by Douglas Lumsden.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. And I thank the Cabinet Secretary and all our Scottish agencies for her determined efforts to create a just transition for Grangemouth. And I note too that the UK Government has now joined the Scottish Government and Scottish Enterprise to support the allocation of up to £3 million for My Algae's bioreactor, with £1.5 million over 2 years. However, has the Cabinet Secretary managed to get any clarity on the promise made by the UK Government on the 23rd of February this year of £200 million? Because by my calculations, they're still £198.5 million short.
Cabinet Secretary.
I want to thank Michelle Thompson for that question, but I also want to thank her for her dogged determination in holding both governments to account on our duties to step in and secure the future for Grangemouth. It is right to say that the UK Government did pledge £200 million of National Wealth Fund monies associated with Grangemouth. I've made the case to UK ministers on a number of occasions around the imperative of releasing that as soon as possible. The National Wealth Fund, I think, should be a far more flexible operation than maybe has been in the past. They're waiting for projects to get to FID. Obviously, the £25 million Just Transition Fund, we were actually helping those projects get to FID, but I think there needs to be a lot more flexibility. And I have to say, Michael Shanks, the UK Energy Minister, we had a chat about this morning, and he does actually agree with me. The National Wealth Fund are engaging, as the Scottish Government and its partners, with prospective developers. We need that clarity that monies will be deployed from it in the near future. And I hope to be able to say that more of that £200 million coming from the UK Government's National Wealth Fund will be deployed in the future.
Thank you, Douglas Lumsden, to be followed by Michael Mathis.
Presiding Officer, can the Cabinet Secretary tell me if the closure of the Grangemouth refinery and the Exxon plant at Musmoran has impacted on the viability of the Acorn project? And will she deliver the £80 million of funding the SNP government promised in order to safeguard the future of carbon capture in Scotland?
Cabinet Secretary.
Well, it was very disappointing to hear that Starega are working away from Acorn, but Acorn remains a going concern, and a very attractive going concern. But the point has been made to me many times by those that want to see carbon capture happening in Scotland, that it needs to be given the same amount of money as associated with the carbon capture projects that are taking place in the north of England as well. That will accelerate the growth in quite a lot of industries, not just in carbon capture, but those associated with them. So I think that we all need to get behind calling on the UK Government to give the same parity to the project, the Acorn project, that was given to the other projects. And of course we stand by our commitment to the Acorn project.
Thank you. Michael Matheson, to be followed by Richard Lynott.
I'm grateful to the Cabinet Secretary for her statement and for the announcement of the new investment in the Grangemouth area over the coming years. The Cabinet Secretary will be recognised. It's important that we try to retain as many of the skills that have been lost through the closure of the petrochemical site in the Falkirk and Grangemouth area, and therefore there is a need to make sure that we see secure investment into the area in the short term as well as the medium to longer term. There is a risk that too much of Scottish Enterprises' work is focused on Project Willow, which is medium to longer term. Can I therefore ask the Cabinet Secretary, will she ensure that Scottish Enterprise intensify their work in order to secure early employment opportunities in the Grangemouth area, not to maximise the opportunity to retain skills in the area?
Cabinet Secretary.
I absolutely agree with the sentiment, Michael Matheson's question there. I think we have to be looking at short-term, medium-term and long-term opportunities for Grangemouth. That's why the announcements today, which are, effectively, I went to the Mialgay site and they had actually already started putting in doing the groundworks for the building of their facility there as well. And as I said in answer to other questions, that they're hoping to open that facility in April. So they are genuinely hitting the ground running. But of course there are other projects that Scottish Enterprise have been looking at that are also shorter term, medium term and longer term as well. I'm particularly excited about the opportunities that may exist in the sustainable aviation fuel aspect of things. I think that could be a real game changer. I'd be very interested to see, of course, what maybe comes out as a result of today is some of the two projects that we are announcing today. What else might come through in terms of opportunities that might come to Scottish Enterprise look at? I think that they've demonstrated that they're not just looking at what Project Willow has looked at in terms of viable sectors, but they're willing to take on other projects as well that might be out with the parameters of Project Willow to secure the kind of the outcomes that Michael Matheson has just mentioned.
Thank you, Richard Lynott, to be followed by Bob Doris.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Can I remind members of my voluntary register of interest? Can I welcome today's announcement of new jobs in Grangemouth? I have a long-held view that the fate of too much of our economy is concentrated in the hands of too few boardrooms in too many faraway places, that we are too dependent on foreign direct investment. Look at what happened at the refinery itself, and that should be a lesson to us all. So I welcome the fact that both of these businesses are in local ownership and control. I think that is a good start. But what undertakings has the government secured about investment, about jobs and workforce planning, about the timetable for those jobs, about research and development, and about freedom of association, in other words, trade unionisation? And are these documented in either planning agreements or in a memorandum of understanding with these businesses?
We are going to need briefer questions and responses.
So if I could give us an example of the two companies that we announced funding for today. Celtic Renewables are already on the Grangemouth Future Industries Board, and obviously Unite the Union are also on that board as well. And there are regular discussions at those meetings around unionisation. But there's also the jobs guarantee scheme, the jobs prioritisation scheme, which actually came from the Unite the Union themselves. That came to the Scottish Government and put forward the idea that it's associated with any funding that was given to any of the successful applicants for Willow funding and for Just Transition funding, that there would be conditionality around that, which would be prioritising those who had lost their jobs in the Grangemouth refinery. They would be guaranteed an interview as well. So I think Mialgay today were there at GFIB as an observer, but they have actually been offered the opportunity to come on board as a member. And Unite the Union were actually speaking directly to Mialgay about the issues that Mr Leonard raises.
Bob Doris, to be followed by Mark Ruskell.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. It's clear that investment can bring success. We saw that with the jobs announcement. But the £14.5 million funding for Grangemouth announced in the UK budget was welcome, of course, if not overdue. As a step forward, will the Cabinet Secretary join me in calling on the UK Government to now go further and to at least match the Scottish Government's commitment of £25 million for each Just Transition Fund to support initiatives for Grangemouth?
Cabinet Secretary.
So it is a long overdue step in the right direction, what Bob Doris has mentioned. But let me be clear, the UK Government can and they must go further, just as it has in other parts of the United Kingdom. We've obviously pressed the UK Government for some time to match the Scottish Government's commitment to £25 million via the Grangemouth Just Transition Fund to support initiatives at Grangemouth. And despite noises off from the Labour benches, this is a positive thing. I'm having a collaborative and constructive dialogue with UK Government ministers in this sector around it. They understand, there is an understanding there, so I don't think it's anything to be bitter and whittering on about, Mr Johnson, because actually this is an example of both governments actually working. This is a good thing, you know. But we also said we need to see the National Wealth Fund commitment being enacted, and again, I've got listening ears in that regard. I think I have a shared frustration that National Wealth Fund has been a little bit too restrictive in getting that deployed. So we'll wait detail of what this will mean in practice for those that live and work at Grangemouth. But I have to say, the collaboration has been very well taken forward by both governments, but we need to see an end to the energy profits levy, because that is the source of the problem for many of the jobs being lost in the energy industry and beyond.
Mark Ruskell, to be followed by Willie Rennie.
Thank you. The future of Grangemouth has always been linked to Moss Moran, and for decades they've shared a common workforce. Deputy First Minister came to the Chamber a few weeks ago and talked about expanding the Grangemouth Investment Task Force to include Moss Moran as a potential location for projects. So can I ask the Cabinet Secretary for an update on that? And given that it seems that a number of projects have now been selected, is it hopefully not too late to incorporate Moss Moran into the thinking around the work of that task force and successful projects that can include both sites?
Well, Deputy First Minister is with me just now, and she is leading on the Moss Moran situation after the very disappointing announcement by ExxonMobil. But the Deputy First Minister is leading on that. But I have met with ExxonMobil as well about some of the guarantees that they're going to put in place around the skills offer that they're going to give for those that face redundancy. They're also at the moment, the company were telling me that they're also trying to redeploy workers from the Fife plant as well into other operations that they have in other parts of the country. And they're also going to be retaining some workers to provide the steam associated with the Fife NGL, their neighbouring facility that is operated by Shell. But I think in the general point that Mark Ruskell raises, what we've been able to do as a result of the Project Willow work, which has been concentrating in Grangemouth, is there is a great deal of projects that might not have been right for Grangemouth, but may be well suited to Moss Moran, and the Deputy First Minister is engaging with Scottish Enterprise on what they might be.
Willie Rennie, to be followed by Rona Mackay.
I should declare an interest. My wife works for Celtic Renewables, so she will be very pleased this evening, although she has kept the news very secret over the last few days. But I want to explore the issue around about guaranteed job interviews for those who have lost their job at INEOS. Are we tracking those who are or already have lost their job? Do we know where they're ending up, and what's the prospect of them returning to the site in Grangemouth?
Cabinet Secretary.
So there's a number of things in there. I want to try and give some of the detail. So those workers that have access to skills opportunities at Forth Valley College, Forth Valley College are trying to monitor them as they leave the training and go out, and they were able to tell me that of those that respond to their final destination surveys, they have over 80 have come back and told them where they've actually got employment, and that's been great. One of the difficulties of the workforce that have been made redundant by Petro INEOS is that they hold the data on who those people are and have not released that to the Scottish Government. But very helpfully, we also have obviously the links with the unions that are involved in the site as well, so we're getting feedback from them too. Quite a lot of the workers have actually not accessed the skills opportunities because they've found employment elsewhere. I think regrettably, and I don't have the details on this, as I said, Petro INEOS maybe have the details on this. I hope that there's not as many workers as I fear that might have had to go abroad for employment, but I think that that's probably a risk that's taken. All the more important that we secure future opportunities for the site to encourage them to come back home.
Rona Mackay, to be followed by Liam Kerr.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Despite election promises to save jobs at the refinery, the Labour UK Government failed to intervene to prevent its closure. Does the Cabinet Secretary share my concern that the Treasury's full financial weight isn't being put behind saving industrial sites in Scotland in the same way as it has been elsewhere in the UK?
Cabinet Secretary.
I do share. I mean, notwithstanding that we have been collaborating very closely on the issues with Grangemouth, we need to look at the interventions that have been made in other parts of the UK as well. And I think it's not just in these benches that there's been some criticism of that. I think there's even been a criticism of it coming from Labour benches down in Westminster, to be fair to the representatives that have made that point exactly in the same way that Rona Mackay. If the UK Government were serious about supporting Grangemouth and Miss Morn, they could put the full financial heft of the Treasury behind supporting that transition. It has been done in other industrial towns in England and Wales, and I support the fact that it's been done in other industrial towns in England and Wales. So they must address, but they also must address the root causes. There's never usually a silver bullet in these kind of situations, but the energy industry and the supply chain have been saying for months and months now that if there's anything close to a silver bullet, it is the repeal or the reform of the Energy Profits Levy, which is having a direct effect on job losses in Scotland.
Thank you. We are over time at the moment. I'm conscious that we've got additional time this afternoon, so I'm going to get the other speakers in. They will need to be brief, as indeed will the responses, Cabinet Secretary. Liam Kerr to be followed by Kevin Stewart.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. A report by Future Economy Scotland found only one green job is created for every 3 lost in the oil and gas supply chain. So these new jobs at Grangemouth are extremely welcome, but does the Cabinet Secretary recognise there will be no true just transition, whether at Grangemouth, Mossmoran, Harbour Energy and all the rest, without removal of the windfall tax by the UK Government and a reversal of the Scottish Government's long-standing presumption against new oil and gas?
Cabinet Secretary.
First of all, when and obviously in my role, you would expect me to be speaking to representatives from across the energy sector wholesale. They are squarely, and this is not just the oil and gas industry and that part of the sector, but it's the supply chain and the renewables industry who are putting out the fact that it is the EPL that is causing the most damage. Now, they have offered, OEUK have offered an alternative fiscal regime to the UK Government. They ignored it at the budget a couple of weeks ago. They need to look at it again. It's still, the ball is still in their court here. And I have to say I can't hear myself think, so I think I'm just going to sit down because Liam Kerr is heckling me from a sedentary position.
Can we please ask the questions with a degree of respect and also listen to the response with a degree of respect? I am going to give some latitude for members to respond and react to what is being said, but it needs to be within reason. I call Kevin Stewart to be followed by Paul Sweeney.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I noticed that this morning the UK Government has said that when Labour came into office there was no plan for Grangemouth. Can the Cabinet Secretary confirm if this is accurate, as while the UK Government may not have had a plan, it does not reflect my understanding of the Scottish Government's efforts?
Cabinet Secretary.
Yeah, well, maybe that quote from the UK Government was actually probably talking about the former UK Government, who certainly didn't have any interest in helping Grangemouth out whatsoever. Obviously, it's disappointing to hear that kind of thing, because we've worked so collaboratively together. The UK Government's statement about the Scottish Government is not accurate. It simply does not reflect the extent of the Scottish Government's commitment to securing a just transition, which began years before the 2024 general election. We've committed to securing a future for Grangemouth Industrial Cluster and work on the Just Transition Plan, crucially engagement with local communities. Scottish Government Minister has chaired the Grangemouth Future Industry Board since 2023, and it was myself that invited the UK Government to co-chair it when they came into office.
Paul Sweeney to be followed by Graham Simpson.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. I think rather than absorbing hundreds of millions of pounds of losses, it's good to see that the UK Government and Scottish Government are working together to create new industrial activity at Grangemouth. I think these two announcements are to be commended, particularly the guaranteed interview scheme to reabsorb redundant workers pioneered by Unite is really welcome. But I wonder, how are we converting these 140 projects more rapidly? 2 in the space of 12 months seems like a low rate of conversion into real projects on the ground. So will the Minister commit to using the the full power of the government to punch through any of blockages around the progress of these projects, whether it's staffing, planning, policy or financial, so we can mobilise more, create more industrial employment, and actually also consider how the Scottish Government could co-invest in equity shares with investors to create industrial activity, so we can crowd in wealth and have long-term state control.
Cabinet Secretary.
Yeah, I'm not going to be able to give a very succinct answer to all those questions that were parcelled up in there, but what I will say to Paul Sweeney, there's actually no blockages in terms of deploying the Scottish Government's funding. What we just have to make sure that we have got the projects that have been triaged by Scottish Enterprise and the ones that are being developed and brought to fruition before we can announce them. And that is obviously takes time, but the due diligence is very important, because when we give public money to any ventures, we need to be absolutely assured that they are going concern, they're actually going to achieve what they have set out. These announcements, I come back to my central point, these announcements today are just the start of the announcements that have come off the back of the Project Willow and the task force results that run by Scottish Enterprise. I have been so impressed with the speed at which they've worked at, and I think that they deserve a great commendation from everyone, regardless of party affiliation.
And briefly, Graham Simpson.
Thank you. In order to deliver all these welcome new jobs, the local college, Forth Valley, needs to be in a secure financial position, but it's facing having to close a campus. I want to see a budget settlement that ensures that no colleges close and no campuses close. Does the Cabinet Secretary agree with me?
Cabinet Secretary.
So I was in Forth Valley College this morning when we did the Grangemouth Future Industry Board, and the principal was there making the point that in order to be able to put as many people through the skills uplift and training actually required by the announcements we made today, we have two particular announcements will require specialised skills, then there needs to be support from the Scottish Government to do that. Obviously we've given support as a result of the skills intervention here. Graham Simpson, we'll just have to wait to the budget to see what else there is.
Thank you, Cabinet Secretary. That concludes this item of business. There will be a brief pause before we move to the next item of business to allow front benches to change.